You're listening to the Vibrant Vision Podcast, a podcast designed to help you get clarity, increase your confidence, and cultivate the most important connections so you can have the impact you were created to make. I'm your host, Amanda Kerrigan. Now let's get to making that vibrant vision a reality. Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Vibrant Vision Podcast. Today we are talking about one of the most common questions that I get when I'm coaching my clients, and that is, what if I fail? What if I fail? And it's a question that plagues all of us, myself included, probably the most. I've asked this question the most. And this question really lights me up as a coach because it's a good question. A lot of people, if you Google this question, a lot of people say, this is a bad question. It's a horrible question. I disagree. And the reason I disagree is because it's exactly the right question if we're ever going to get beyond our own nonsense and finally achieve the things that we were created to achieve. So hang with me for a minute if you're asking this question today, or if you already feel like you've failed. Like, hashtag resolution fail. Here we go, 2023. But 2022 isn't even a 12th of the way over, you guys. So let's dive into this question. Let's really go deep on this question. So last week, I alluded to this a little bit, but I want to dive deep into this. Fear of failure is a good thing. You might think, why? Why is fear a good thing? Well, first of all, fear is designed to protect us. It's designed to keep us safe. And it's also designed to keep us from being eaten by a tiger on the Serengeti. It's a natural response to risk. So if you're feeling fear, it's an indication that you're outside of your comfort zone. And being outside of your comfort zone is you being on track to achieve something truly meaningful. Any coach worth their salt is going to ask you a lot of questions. You may notice this on my podcast. I tend to ask you, and those questions are designed to make you think, to get you into the zone of achievement. And so today I have 4 questions for you, and I'm really excited to dive into this topic for you. These are questions that I have asked my clients on calls. These are questions that I am going to ask you on this call because today it's time to ask the question, what if I fail? And get an answer. So the first question for you today is, what is at risk? What are you risking? Because a lot of times we're like, well, it's scary, but we don't know what we're risking. We haven't taken the time to name what we've risked. So there's always a risk when we're achieving things that matter, when we're achieving our vibrant visions. That's a good thing. Because if we risk much, we can succeed even more. So when we name what we risk, we intentionally declare that we are risking that thing on purpose. And doing something on purpose is empowering. So what are you risking? Have you made a significant financial investment? You know, when I first started my business, I made quite a significant financial investment in my coach training. And I was scared. I was afraid. What if I fail? What if I can't do this thing that I've wanted to do? Or maybe you've made a public commitment. Maybe in your resolution euphoria, you said, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. And people are like, yay! And then you're like, hi, donuts, you're delicious. Or maybe it's a commitment to yourself and who you are as a person. And if you fail, then you won't be that person. Or maybe it's something you've previously failed at and you're risking, again, failure. And you know you can fail, but you don't know yet that you can succeed. Sometimes our fears are internal as well. And sometimes we're risking our pride. Pride is a big thing for me especially. And when I had to let go of a few goals last year, it hurt my pride. And I had to surrender that. I had to say, okay, my worth is not found in my work or my weight or my willpower. It is found in God. And so when we have pride, it's an opportunity to examine, if I'm risking my pride, what does that mean? What am I really thinking I'm risking? Or maybe it's our reputation. Do we fear losing some kind of social standing? I had a client a couple of years ago who wanted to quit her job. It was a high-powered executive position. And she said, I really want to be a coach. It's what I've always wanted to do. And so when we talked about it, her biggest fear was that she would lose social standing. And my client didn't lose social standing when she left, but it was a real fear. Or maybe it's your identity. Is your sense of who you are so closely tied to what you do that you can't see around it? That's what my issue was last year. And praise God, I got through it. And I realized that I don't have to have the degree to be a success. So when we take ownership of the risk we are taking, when we name it, when we say, hey, this is what I am intentionally risking, then we can address the fear that taking the risk naturally triggers. And we're going to do that next. So name that risk. What are you risking? Dive deep into this question. Okay, next question. You might hate me. What if you fail? Really? Ask this question. Most of my clients are astonished, almost offended when I ask this question, but it's a good question to walk through because my goal is not only to be your cheerleader, but also to be your coach. And when I ask the hard questions, it's so that you are empowered within yourself. So what if you fail? What would happen? Picture it, feel it, imagine it. What would it feel like? What would the consequences be to failure? And what would you have to do to recover from that setback? And a lot of times when my clients decide to walk through this with coaching support, they decide that the result of failure probably isn't that bad. And most of them, in fact, I've only had one who would say, I wouldn't try again. Most of them said, well, I would figure out what went wrong and then I would approach it differently if I failed. Or I would decide to not risk this much, but I would risk this much. So mitigating that risk that you assessed in the first question. Maybe you do need to lessen your risk to make it less scary. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, this is realistic for me in this season. So in the case of my client who wanted to quit her job, she had to walk through, what if I had to return to work? And of course, I got her permission to share her story. And she's amazing right now. She's so successful. But here's the thing. She had to walk through that fear. What if I have to come back? What if I have to swallow my pride and return to this job? Or what if I have to get a part-time job like I did in college to support myself? And what she found out was it's not that bad. It's not that scary. It's not going to kill me. So walk through that failure. What if I fail? What would happen? Third question. What if you don't try? What if you just say, okay, well, I'm just going to fail anyway, so might as well not try? Because there's risk in not trying too. And the biggest risk is to our character, because when we set out to achieve a vibrant vision, when we set out to do something that's really important, it shapes who we are and who we become. So what experiences, what potential success will you forfeit if you just say, I'm not going to try? I thought 2022 was my year, but it obviously is not, and I'm not going to try. What dreams will you not achieve if you decide to just play it safe? And are you willing to stand on the sidelines of life this year? Because a lot of times our decisions to not try feel like an indecision, feel like, well, I'm not really all in. So we waver and we think, oh, I should, but then we don't. So they feel like an indecision, but really every decision not to act is a decision not to try. So when we decide to try, then we can act. And is it failure that you fear, or the missed opportunity if you don't succeed? Because if it's the missed opportunity, then you have to make a decision every day to continue to try. And here's a hard truth. By not trying, you've already failed. If you don't try today, if you don't make an effort today, then you've already failed. And then you have to answer that question again. What if I fail again tomorrow? And finally, my favorite question. What if you succeed? Beyond your wildest dreams, what if everything that you have dreamed of doing this year comes true? What if you succeed? Is it worth the risk? And if it is worth the risk, then is it worth the risk today? So step into that question. What if you succeed? What does it feel like? What does it look like? Who are you with? How are you celebrating? What will you do or be or have that you don't do or have right now? And even if you only got 50% of the way to your goal, even if you only lost 25 pounds, what would that feel like? If you only got half of the clients you dream of, what would that feel like? What would serving those people feel like? Be like? Because a lot of times, our fear of failure keeps us stuck. It keeps us in the same place. It keeps us thinking that we're trying, but we're not actually risking anything because risking requires courage. And a lot of times, whenever I walk around, people are like, oh, you're so courageous because I'm blind. They assume that I'm naturally courageous, but courage is a daily choice. It's a muscle that we're building, just like I build muscle whenever I do push-ups, which is not often enough, admittedly. So I have to try too. But if we are willing to name the risk, walk through the process of failing to discover that it's probably not as scary as we thought. It's just a learning process, usually. Decide that we are going to try because we've pictured a life where we don't try and that life is not acceptable. And envision the success. We can be successful. You can be successful. So that's my encouragement for you today. Ask the question. Lean into the question, what if I fail? And then determine that fear is not going to keep you stuck because you've already walked through it in your mind and you've come out better on the other side. If you've enjoyed this episode, if this episode has helped you in any way, would you do me a huge favor? It helps me reach more people. If you could go onto your favorite podcast and leave a review. We're on all of them, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. It would really, really help me reach other people. And if you know somebody who would enjoy this episode, would you just share it with them? It really helps me do what I want to do, which is reach more people with this podcast and help more people. I really appreciate you listening. Join me next week when we start our series on confidence killers. I'm super excited about this series. I've wanted to do this for a while, and I'm just thrilled to be able to bring this series to you. So if you're excited about that, please join me next week, and I'll see you then.